I always thought that Netflix was crazy not to get into live sports sooner than they did. Those guys truly have a global footprint. I think they're late to the game, but it was a big success.
The performance of the broadcast, did that give you pause to do business with Netflix at all?
I didn't think the event was a great event, but they needed to do that. They knew Mike Tyson was going to bring in...
Dana White finally spoke, his words hitting harder than any punch. Disappointment was etched on his face, with fury blazing in his eyes, revealing the depth of his frustration.
He gets mad when I do this, but Mike's 60, man. I don't know. What do you guys think about it? Who gives a shit what I think? It's not my fight. I love Mike Tyson, you know, personally as a friend, and he's one of my favorite athletes of all time.
Why? Because Dana White had just watched boxing's reputation get trashed by none other than a living legend and a self-proclaimed problem child. That's right, Mike Tyson and Jake Paul didn't just embarrass themselves. They set fire to the integrity of an entire sport. To destroy something legendary, it only takes two forces working in opposite directions, and Tyson and Jake proved they were more than capable of the task.
I mean, all the people that are, you know, there's a lot of, in Portnoy went out and said that it was the greatest con job of
all those hype-filled training videos, trash talk, and fake threats turned out to be just as fake as the fight itself. Hollow, pre-rehearsed, and a slap in the face to every fan who dared believe in them. How are we, the fans, ever supposed to trust a boxing match again?
Put together a training camp and come in and, I don't like to see guys fighting it. He had a 31-year age difference during that fight. Just, you guys know what I think of that stuff.
Leaked footage has surfaced showing Mike Tyson, the boxing legend, and Jake Paul, the loudest YouTuber to ever lace up gloves, allegedly rehearsing for a scripted fight. Not sparring or strategizing, but straight up practicing, as if auditioning for a community theater production titled How to Scam Your Fans in 10 Rounds or Less. The whole thing reeks of deception. Let's talk about betrayal. Fans didn't pay to watch a dress rehearsal. They paid handsomely for what they thought was a genuine clash of skill and legacy. Instead, they got what now looks like a pre-planned choreography routine. This wasn't boxing, it was boxing cosplay. The fans, who bought tickets, pay-per-view streams, and overpriced merch, have been played. They were duped into believing it was real.
And it was a bit of a shit show, but, what did you expect? Seriously, when you stayed home and you turned on Netflix that night, we were like, holy f***, I'm about to see the greatest live sporting event of all time.
Let's not pretend this disaster didn't come with a hefty payday. Tyson reportedly cashed in $20 million, while Jake Paul earned around $40 million. All for what? A performance so fake, it would make professional wrestling blush with embarrassment.
There's a lot of, in Portnoy went out and said that it was the greatest con job of all time.
Dana White, the UFC boss, took one look at this mess and decided to torch it from orbit. He called it a circus act, an insult to circuses, as at least clowns are upfront about what they're doing. This was a spit in the face of every real fighter who's blood broken bones or risked it all for their sport. White wasn't just mad, he was livid, calling the entire spectacle a stain on the already struggling reputation of boxing.
My biggest problem with the Jake Paul thing is, and how this plays out, is when he actually fought somebody who was a boxer, who had the same type of record he has, who is his age,
Tommy,
and who is his size, he lost.
Yes, an actual fight script leaked online before the event, and the details were shockingly specific. It outlined every move, like a bizarre screenplay. Tyson's aggressive opening, Jake Paul's cautious strategy, even the fifth-round drama where someone nearly gets knocked out, completely scripted. When the fight happened, it followed the leaked blueprint so perfectly that it felt like watching a spoiler-filled trailer for a movie you never even wanted to see.
Well, X has spoken. The fight was scripted. Everyone is talking about this on X, and the script was actually leaked on X a few days ago.
The fight itself was a joke. Tyson, who once struck fear into opponents, seemed to be going through the motions. His bob and weave was there, but the intensity, the fire, was gone. Jake Paul's movements mirrored the script so precisely, it was almost painful to watch. Fans didn't witness boxing, They watched a sad parody wrapped in glitz and hype. It wasn't a fight. It was a live-action scam. And guess what? People paid millions to see it.
When the bell rings, Tyson is showing flashes of his old form, which actually happened. As soon as the bell went, Mike Tyson came out with that head movement, pushing forward. Immediately, he stalks forward with his signature bob and weave style.
Dana White wasn't done dragging this travesty. He didn't just call it a joke. He slammed Jake Paul's entire career. White pointed out the obvious. Paul keeps picking fights with opponents who are either way past their prime or have no business in a boxing ring. It's as if Paul's matchmaking strategy is to find the oldest, slowest fighters and then act surprised when he wins. White's frustration boiled over as he called out Paul's refusal to face real fighters, those who've dedicated their lives to mastering the sport.
Under any circumstances, almost 60-year-old man shouldn't be fighting a 27-year-old guy, even if it's Mike Tyson. So my biggest problem with the Jake Paul thing is, and how this plays out, is when he actually fought somebody who was a boxer, who had the same type of record he has, who was his age,
Tommy,
and who was his size, he lost.
Every jab, every dodge, every dramatic moment of the fight was completely choreographed, like a second-rate drama. Imagine being Dana White, running the UFC, where fighters sacrifice everything for glory, only to watch Jake Paul and Mike Tyson create this embarrassment. White didn't sugarcoat it. This wasn't boxing. It was theater, and bad theater at that.
I mean, all the people that are, there's a lot of, in Portnoy went out and said that it was the greatest con job of all time.
Jake Paul. Let's just say Dana had thoughts. He roasted Paul for dodging real opponents, instead cherry-picking legends past their prime. Dana exposed Paul's whole shtick as a calculated scam to boost his ego without taking any real risks.
What do I think of the Mike Tyson fight?
yes.
Tyson's 58 years old. You know what I mean? Jake fought a guy who was his age and was also considered a boxer, and he lost.
As for Tyson, let's not pretend Dana had any sympathy for a legend selling out his name for an easy $20 million payday. The anger wasn't just about this one fight. It was a warning. Boxing is being hijacked by influencers who think fake punches and stage drama equals skill. This wasn't a competition. It was a cheap stunt to sell tickets. And honestly, who can disagree? Tyson and Paul didn't put on a fight. They put on a show, and not the kind anyone wanted to see.
So if you can keep fighting 50-something-year-olds
You don't think Tyson has a chance?
and making a living at it, I think that Mike Tyson has a puncher's chance against anybody.
Here's the part that stings the most. Fans paid for this nonsense. They shelled out hard-earned cash, expecting an iconic clash of eras, a real test of grit and skill. Instead, they got a glorified sparring session, disguised as a competitive fight. The event raked in massive pay-per-view sales because, let's face it, people love a spectacle.
The Jake Paul Mike Tyson fight.
Interesting.
Script.
How so? What do you mean by
It's just
script?
weird. It just
Like scripted in what way?
no, I don't know. I actually really like Jake Paul.
Tyson didn't even need the money. He's got a thriving cannabis empire, a mountain of endorsement deals, and royalties from a career that's already solidified his place in history. So why stoop to this level? It's not like he was short on options. He could have done anything else, but instead, he chose to put his name on what's now being branded as one of the biggest jokes in boxing history.
Mike Tyson's just been beat off Jake Paul. But how? Mike Tyson's an absolute legend and one of the greatest fighters of all time. How can this YouTuber beat such a great fighter?
As for Jake Paul, let's not pretend this was ever about the sport. It wasn't about proving himself as a boxer. It was about adding another clickbait headline to his resume. Jake Paul beats Mike Tyson practically writes itself, and you can bet he's plastering it across every social media platform. Never mind that Tyson is nearly 3 decades older and past his prime. Jake's strategy is simple. Cherry-pick opponents who look good on paper, but pose no real threat in the ring.
I mean, all the people that are, there's a lot of, in Portnoy went out and said that it was the greatest con job of all time, I mean, if you didn't think that that's the way the fight, I don't know what people expect.
And who paid the ultimate price for this circus? The fans, of course. They tuned in hoping to witness something memorable, something historic. Instead, they got an emotional slap in the face. This wasn't boxing. It was a soap opera with gloves. The betrayal was palpable. Fans expected authenticity, but were handed a pre-rehearsed scam. The entire event was dripping with the hollow theatrics you'd expect from a bad reality show.
If he wants to do boxing, why not fight guys that actually box for a living?
100%. Fight guys that box for a living and guys that are your age. How about that?
He says he wants to fight Canelo.
Even the referees seemed to be in on the joke with their exaggerated interventions and oddly timed pauses, which only added to the suspicion that this was more theater than sport. At one point, it felt like they were auditioning for supporting roles in this mess. Fans noticed and weren't shy about voicing their disgust. Social media exploded with hashtags like #FakeFight and Sue Jake Paul as outraged viewers demanded refunds and even legal action for being deceived. And let's talk about that backlash. Memes flooded the internet faster than Jake Paul runs from real competition. Tyson's lackluster punches, Jake's over-the-top celebrations. It was all fair game. Fans weren't just mad, they were furious. This wasn't disappointment, it was outright betrayal. Some even called for Tyson and Paul to face legal consequences for what they saw as blatant false advertising. Honestly, can you blame them? When you pay to see a fight, you expect a real contest, not a choreographed stunt designed to line the pockets of two opportunists. Let's be clear, Tyson and Paul aren't losing any sleep over this. For them, it's all about the money and the headlines. Integrity, respect for the fans. Forget it. They're too busy swimming in their piles of cash to care about the mess they've left behind.